On to Animation Lab, week 8. Today we're going to be talking about secondary action, which is yet another one of the principles of animation. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about ToonCamp. ToonCamp's a community of animators focused on helping you go from idea to finished project and in attaining the skills that you need to properly animate. There are lots of free classes, events, and workshops. Some are limited to supporting members, though currently none of them are over here. There are many classes for ToonCamp members that we're part of SkillCamp, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides free and low-cost classes to help you master skills to reach your life goals. New classes are coming soon, free for supporting members, and oftentimes free for everyone. Drop by the new servers and say hi. These are the things that are currently happening in all the many sister servers that we have. Script Camp, Word Camp, Film Camp, Creator Camp, ToonCamp, and Code Camp. Each specializes in, well, what the name suggests. Currently we have some really cool things happening. Script analysis, script screenwriting in general, novel writing, and part of the film production pipeline, as well as Animation Lab over here, and the Python bootcamp happening over in CodeCamp. How can you help SkillCamp? By donating and becoming a supporting member. By volunteering, if you know a skill that you'd like to teach. You feel free to contact Nacho about it, who just joined, by the way. Say hi, Nacho.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Or tell your friends. Refer the server to the community to other people. And join in as well. So, let's take a quick look. Okay, we're going to be having to download a lot of things too. Perfect. Let's take let's quickly look back at the past week, and let's talk about how did it go. Did you do the exercises? I know that Nance did. I know that Vintage did. And I just saw some things by Mesh as well. Any animation experiments, and in general if you had any difficulties or questions, and clips that you'd like to share with the group for discussion. I will now leave the floor as I do the downloads. Feel free to take it and say something. Also, welcome, Vintage.
Thank you. How are you doing?
I am doing fine. I see you managed to do the jumping the gap exercise. Nice. That was really good. I wanted to talk about it. I wanted you to be here when I talked about it.
All right, great. Yeah. Yeah, really enjoyed it, and first brush up on like animation. Haven't done animation in a while or anything like that. Got some experience like doing it, and I love cartoons and stuff like that. So I'm one of the people who kind of like pause the show and just kind of like take a look at like the frame by frame, saying, wow, they really like bent that angle or whatever else. So
yeah, it's really cool. So yeah, if nobody else wants to step in and say anything, we can move into the talk of the exercises. Okay, there's Mesh's one. Perfect. Eventually Mesh will join as well. Okay, so let's take a look at Nance's, because she was here, she was first. So let's take a look at that. This was Nance's walk cycle. Actually, it's the second version, and I'll talk about the first version in a little bit. So, technically, from a technical standpoint, this is a very functional walk cycle. You see, yeah, there's just a little stutter at the end because I believe
I see that.
There are repeated frames. But that's really not that concerning.
It's a technical issue, yeah.
Yeah, it's a technical issue. That's not a concerning thing. I have a question, Nance. Do you know? Can you see why I told you to do it this way?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I mean, yeah, so as I said, this is perfectly functional as a walk cycle. You see, you have like all the different moving parts. You have the arm, the forearm that's following the arm, the hands that are following the forearm. It's very graphic, as in like it's very simplified, but it's definitely functional. See, the previous version was this one. And
Yeah.
the issue with this one, oops. The issue with this one is that it's not that hard to see. It's like the foot's right here.
Yeah.
Let me bring out Epic Pen. This is like the classic, right? Epic Pen here, foot. Next frame, the foot's moved like a whole meter forward.
Yeah.
Like these are the kind of things that you have to keep consistent. So in this case, this would have to be moved back. The other would have to be moved back. If you wanted it to be moving across the screen. Those are the things you need to worry about if you're doing something that's moving across the screen. Make sure that it is anchoring where it needs to.
Right.
The second one, because it's stationary, it's just moving, it just gives the illusion of motion. It works, like, you feel like the floor's passing beneath and you don't really worry about the rest. Because everything else is staying the same. But yes, I'd say that from a technical standpoint, it works. And was it your first time doing a walk cycle?
No, actually, I did one a couple years ago, and that was the one that I was going to try to break. I just downloaded Handbrake, but I couldn't. I have something that it has a big background in the back, which makes it a big file. So. All
right. I see. I need to do that. Okay. So yes, I don't think I can say a lot more about this. As in, like, it works, it's expressive, it very much does the job. I think it would have been more interesting if you could have. I don't know how versatile your drawing software or hardware is currently.
Right.
But I think it would have been more interesting if you tried to do it. If you took this base and you tried to apply it to any of the characters that are in the turnarounds.
Okay.
Because you're gonna be faced with different challenges, with different things that you'd find more interesting and more difficult, and that would force you to like go beyond your current level.
Right.
Also, this is this on 2s or on 4s?
I think I did on 3s. I was following something.
Maybe it's on 3s.
Japanese.
Yeah. Might be on 3s. Okay, yeah, that would make sense. Let me see.
Yeah.
That's 4. It's 4. Oh, I was holding. Yeah, okay, fucking VLC doesn't know what the hell it's doing. I hate this software for this. I still just haven't found a better one. But yeah, if I believe it's on 3s. It does kind of look the part. Hello? Yeah. Why did it stop moving? Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
I would suggest that for your exercise next week that you try to do what I said here, which is to take this base and apply a character on top of it.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Because I think that's going to be more fruitful in terms of like where you're at and where you're going.
Right.
Because there are going to be a lot of challenges you're gonna face when doing this. Try to pick. You can pick Kuro if you want, but I would still go for some of the other ones. Chihiro is a good one because she's still fairly simple. I would definitely not do Nanachi.
Okay.
Because that one's very difficult.
Okay.
But yeah, try to apply a character on top of this for next week if you can.
Thanks. All right. I will.
All right. So next one is vintages. Vintages jumping the gap. Also, actually, I didn't do this because I always forget. Is there anything that anyone else wants to say about nonsense? Yes.
I like the I like the kind of how he has a little bounce and depth and just the overall proportion. Even though this is
It's
like
kind of
kind of like yeah yeah he's like he's on his way to do something. And he's I don't know that I'm sort of getting that from that walk cycle and in the very simple like even that jelly bean shaped body I think is there's something sort of delightful about that like that yeah so yeah I think I don't know.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep, same. Pretty simple by the book. I like the fact that it carries the wave of the walk. Bounce up and down a little bit. And the only thing that I would probably add to it is just a little bit of squash and stretch on like the head and the bottom.
Okay.
The
Alright.
body.
So it
I
just
wouldn't do
squashes
it
a
on
little
the
bit.
head.
You would do it on the body.
Yeah, the body is what squashes and stretches. The head just moves along.
Okay.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, that has to do with like where the fat is placed, and you have the fat around the belly. That's what's going to be squashing and stretching the most. Alternatively, the torso as well, because that's where your rib cages and the oxygen coming in and coming out, you can insert that into the motion and you can have it expand and contract, and that can add to the squash and stretch as well. The head more so follows the movement in overlapping action than strictly squashing and stretching. Although you can do it, but I don't think it's moving fast enough to justify it, you know? The hands are definitely going to be an interesting thing to see when you actually put a character here.
Right, exactly.
Because you're not going to get away with like little balls.
Yeah, the paddles.
All right. So let's move on to vintages. And I really wanted to look at this one because this one's really interesting. Okay, that was my. Does it work? It's not working. Come on, tablet. Okay, it's working now. Kind of. Not really. There we go. It's working now. Okay, so let's just play this out real quick. The first question that comes to mind when I see this. So first, props. This is very well technically animated. But the first question that comes to mind when I see this feels like it was done entirely straight ahead. Was it?
If you're talking about like I drew out like every single frame, basically.
No, I mean like if you did frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 4, in this order, you know?
Yes.
It feels like you did it that way. Okay. That results in... Okay, if you had to describe your animation here, like how the movement feels, what would you say?
It feels there's something that's like a little awkward about it. I can't tell if it's because I didn't really do any keyframes right. I did it straight ahead, so like the spacing is a little awkward. It feels like has more momentum moving forward, but doesn't actually like go far enough. But the character movement feels like it's fluid. It looks like it's right, but it feels like it's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was saying. Like, this is what I wanted to hear in a way. Because as I said, technically, like none of these frames or none of the sequences of frames, like I can't say they're bad because they're not. Like obviously they're very sketchy and they need to be polished and whatever, but they're not. The problem here comes with readability, and this is what keyframes are good for. This frame is one that needs to hold for a little bit because your mind needs to register this. This frame back here, this frame also needs to hold. This needs to hold for like Was this done on 2s or 3s?
I think it was done on 2s. The software had like a setting for
Okay.
on 2s, on 3s. So I think
Okay.
it's on 2s.
This one would need to hold for either 3 or 4 frames. It needs to hold for a little bit longer. And then, like, the jump is good. I have nothing against it. And then the thing is, okay, I want to look closely at the spacing here. I want to look at the heads for this part here. And I want to look at the arcs and everything. Because it's exactly what you said. It's like, it should be good, but there's something that's just not quite there, you know? No, I skipped that one. Like kind of here, here, and here. Okay, okay. Are you starting to see a problem? Let's just
It looks
look
like
here.
the spacing, yeah.
Because I'm starting to see one of the slight issues. I mean, again, you have the thing that's kind of going here, which is it's very sketchy. It's hard to see where things are. So a lot of these like points are kind of guesstimations of where they feel like they are. Yeah, this is like brilliant squash and stretch. Like brilliant squashing. The poses are so dynamic. Like this is lovely. I love what you're doing here. Such a dynamic pose. That was a little not right, but it's okay.
This is probably one of the hardest parts for me, putting it back down on the same level on the other side.
Oh, trust me, it was very difficult for me as well. I went back and forth on like how to get that jump right too.
And for anyone who isn't using it, I end up making this an animation paper, which is it's really good. It feels like a good software. It's really basic in kind of its interface and stuff like that. I do recommend it, but it's very unfinished as like a product.
A little
So
bit.
like here, the character is basically going off the page because by the time I started to run to the edge of the screen, I realized, oh, I want to move everything over, together.
Oh.
And there's no like select everything option in there yet.
No,
So I would have had to.
Oh, you know how I did mine? Actually, I can show you a really quick thing. This is a bit of See, I'm used to having to find these workarounds because I usually animate on Sketchbook, which is also an absolute garbage animation software. Okay, let me just hide this for a second. So, these are the final layers, but these are not the layers that matter here. The first layers are these. Well, they're not. Are they not? There we are. And then I thought, well, this looks okay, but I want it to be a bit more zoomed in. So I exported everything, found like a clipping tool online for images and like cropped it like all the same and then downloaded all the images again and used them as references. And then like finally did I think these were the references. These blue and these black were the references. These ones here. These were the zoomed in versions, already like cropped to what I wanted. And then like I just drew over it and cleaned it up. Yes, it's like I'm used to this and I kind of like find a thrill in this, but yes, it's definitely not a finished software, and like it's very much a basic thing. Although, if you're being, if to be fair, if you were doing this on paper and the same thing happened to you, you'd be screwed. You can't move the paper sideways either. What this software allows you to do in these cases, though, is you can come over here and you can take the frame off the pegs. And you can move the thing, but you can only do it one at a time, I'm pretty sure. Regardless, let's look at this again. And let's bring this back. Yes. So the first thing is that you definitely got arcs going for you. Like, obviously the sketchiness doesn't help, but like you got arcs going for you. You got something here. It's kind of hard to say if it's going like this and then going up, but something there. The technical side of the jump here is really good. Come on, move back. No? Undo? There we go. Yeah, like this part here is really good. Now, there are a couple of things that I think are really, or are somewhat significantly hurting your animation. First is that you didn't do keyframes. Or that you didn't go back after doing the straight ahead to mark out or to like mentally recognize what the keyframes would be. Because that definitely makes it so your animation feels very always on the go and kind of hard to read. Like you don't really get a good read of any of the poses because it's always happening, you know? And yeah, that's one of the things that's kind of happening. This pose up here is actually a really good one. Believe it or not, this is the only thing that kind of registers as a key that you did. These ones up here. Because they are more or less consistent and they work together. Like you can read those. Or at least read them better than the others. Because everything else is just happening. This is a practice of mine, you don't have to do it, but I recommend that the first frame, the very first frame, always hold for 1 second. And that the very last frame also hold for 1 second. This isn't natural, but like, it helps you like grip where you're starting and where you're ending, you know? Like, when you look at this, and you barely feel it, right? Okay, now it's gonna be looping between them. But you see, like, the first one holds for like almost a full second. And then like the last one also holds for like, because that helps you like grasp like where the character starts and where the character ends. But that's like a very small little thing. The other thing is, so the other thing where keyframes are important is precisely in the spacing. If you recognize that this is a keyframe, and that this is a keyframe, and that this is a keyframe, and that this is going to be a keyframe, then you are going to be spacing things out very differently. Because you'd have the slow outs, the slow ins, again, and then here, because this is an explosive jump, yes, you'd have this big jump, and then it would be slowly, well, this is actually not that great, and it would be like slowly slowing back into this position, where it would then slow out again, and then slow back in. This is why keyframes are so important, because they mark out these important places where you need the person to, like, the audience to recognize what's happening. And they also, like, tell you where to slow in, where to slow out. When you're doing keyframes, you're always going to be recognizing the arcs. Like, all of those things. Like, if the exact same number of frames were used, but they were spaced differently, this movement would feel very different, you know? Like, just the going down. It's a little weird. Was this a smear?
Probably something I copied over or something, so
okay.
yeah.
Like, and then it's just like, yeah, that's like the thing, right? Your draftsmanship is really good. Your poses are really good.
Thank you.
But these issues of like spacing, and especially the spacing and not using keyframes, are important to like recognize.
I'll say too, even where you had the third keyframe, initially I had a couple more poses drawn in that area, and it really helped. It really added to the awkward feeling because it felt like the character was trying to explode from the start of the run, and then just really slowing down and coming to a complete halt to bend over for a jump. So I end up having to compensate and just get rid of a couple keyframes just to try to make it feel more, more momentum, like it's a continuation.
Okay, but I think you're not getting a keyframe right.
Well, I probably didn't get any of the keyframes right. I only
No, what I'm saying, it's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I don't think you're getting the concept of the keyframe. The keyframe doesn't need to involve you drawing more frames around the same place. Let me bring this one. Nope, not that either. You bring this one back. Okay, let's bring this to a close. So this is a keyframe. Are you gonna move? No, yeah, because obviously there's a little time. And then like it goes out, and this is also a keyframe. And the frame itself holds, like it's the same drawing. It's just there for a little bit longer, And a little bit longer doesn't need to be a lot longer. It can be like 4 frames or 3 frames or however many frames. It just needs to be enough to recognize that something's happening. This needed to hold for a very long time. This didn't need to hold for a long time, but it needed to hold a little bit, This part, really good. The jump from here to here, really good. I think if you were able to hone in on the timing and spacing of this part, you'd be able to figure out the issues of timing and spacing here. Because I think there are some frames you could cut up here to make the jump faster, and I think that would benefit it. But I can't really be sure because the entire thing kind of feels like it's floating on water right now, Like it's floating in a bit of an ether kind of thing. Like even the running, like this feels like that intense fake run that you can do.
I feel that.
Because the feet are lingering way too long, right? Like no, like okay. Let's go back a couple frames. Let's clear this up. Here, foot is right here. Perfect. Next frame. Foot is still right here. It's okay. Next frame. Oh, it was right here. Like this is already made a little bit too much, Like I don't think you need 3 frames like this. This one's coming forward. That one's Give me a very quick second. Okay, so I'm sorry I interrupted this. I just ran over to the wall and back. Just to like get a feel for how a run happens. And I know why this run is awkward now. Because when you run, you animated a run as you animate a walk. Okay? when you walk, you have foot here, and then the other one does the arc, or actually the arc. And then it stops, and then this one does the arc. And then it stops, and this one does the arc. And that's like how a walk animation goes, right? So this foot here, this one lands, and then this one's going to go like this, and then over, and then like stretching, and then like in the land, right? And then this one here is just going to go like this, and then like this, and then like this. This is how a walk would go, right? That's not how a run goes. When you're running at this intensity, you're making jumps. So this, when you're running with poses, what I'm saying is when these are the poses you're working with, like these extreme run poses, what you're doing is you're actually jumping, you're making strides. So this pose here, you actually have like something, Let's go back. Let's go back to the start. Here. Like this frame would be entirely in the air and slightly forward. Or significantly more forward, because the entire body is in the air for a very brief moment. And then when it lands back, it's not going to land back here. See, okay, that's exactly it, right? So this is this. This is where the foot is. And then the next frame, the foot lands here. This is how you would do a walk, but for this run, the foot would land like here, you know? Because you're moving forward, you're running with a lot of intensity. You can feel these things out by running. I mean, for what it's worth, when I was prepping, even in class, when I was prepping my own little jump animation, one of the things that I did is I got up and I just like jumped over a little carpet that I have to like get a feel for how that would go. Like how would I move the arms? What would my legs be doing? Like all those kinds of like little things. You can do that. You can even record yourself doing the actions if they are really complicated. That's very common in like even large productions. There are published recordings of like animators acting out expressions and scenes for Arcane, for example, and it's really, really interesting. Because that show has a lot of really amazing animation. But yeah, these are things that you can definitely catch. Like the fact that this run feels like a walk, and that's because it's animated like a walk. Like it should be so much faster. Let me get rid of this. Like you could make the entire movement in like 2 steps instead of taking 3. It's 1, 2, 3. You could do like 2, 1, 2, and then you would jump. You know. And maybe if that would be the case, no, I still think this frame right here would need to hold for like just a smidge longer, but that's like not really that big of a deal. The landing is mostly fine, actually. Like when I look at it, the landing is mostly fine. It's the kind of thing that right now it works. If you were to fix this and then this, just in terms of like the spacings and the timings and whatever, you'd probably have to make some adjustments over here as well, because it would probably feel too slow. But right now I think it works fine. But yes, this was one little clip. I hope this doesn't like I hope this doesn't feel bad.
No, the only part about this entire experience that felt bad was exporting it to the MP4, because then when I finally exported it and I saw in the timestamp there 3 seconds, I was like, what? 3 seconds? Like when I was making this, it felt so good. It felt like it was the 3-hour uncut director's cut. Like this was everything, so the entire thing just felt really good.
Yeah. But yeah, I like, as I said, I hope like you don't feel like I'm ripping into this, because I really think this was a really interesting case study in a way. In a similar way that I've had some with Mesh as well, where there were like things that were done well, but there were also things that were like kind of iffy and needed some adjustments, and then like next time he didn't do those mistakes, and that was amazing, you know. And
No,
so
this is good. Yeah.
so in a way, like, these motions are really complicated already. Like, these are far from simple motions. Um, but yeah, so keyframes. So takeaways from this is keyframes. Keyframes are absolutely essential, right? You need to have your keyframes. You need to have them. You need to recognize them. Like, you don't need to like do a specific keyframe thing. I mapped out my own animation pretty much straight ahead, and for what it's worth, that gave me problems in the landing. But yes, you have to then go back and you can say, okay, this is a keyframe, that's a keyframe. These are frames you're going to need to hold a little bit longer, and these are frames towards which I'm going to slow out and slow back in. You know? Because that's very important for clarity, and that's very important for conveying the motion. The other thing is, as a subordinate thing, is the spacing. You have the slow ins and slow outs that I was talking here. You got the arcs down. I don't think you really have any issue with the arcs. I think overall they're working fine. Your draftsmanship, again, it's clear that if you had more time to polish this would look great, like as drawings. So yeah, I got nothing to say on that. But yes, like, essential here, you know. And then also like reference your move, your actions when you're not like entirely sure what they're supposed to look like or what they're supposed to feel like. Reference your actions, like act them out, see what they're like. I'm saying this assuming that you didn't. Did you?
Not as much as I should have. I just looked up like one or two clips of like Usain Bolt and a long jump, but that was about it. Most of it was just kind of off the top.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I think that's generally it. Does anyone else want to say anything about this?
Yeah, I mean, I really, I mean, yeah, the like basically what you already said, Beatrice, about like the drawing, just like the figure, the way the figure is drawn is really nice, and yeah, like I was, Beatrice already sort of covered like, a lot of the stuff with spacing and stuff, and like, yeah, I was trying to think like what this reminded me of, and I realized it kind of reminded me of a video game where like the run cycle of the character is like in a video game you'll see like the run cycle, and then you hit the button and it'll transition to the jump, right? And that's like a different animation. And I think that's sort of like what's happening here. Is the run cycle feels like it's a different speed jump, but on their own they're both really great. But yeah, I guess it's just that transition to the jump that But yeah, like it's like really cool. Even just watching this now is like it feels like the way the character like the things they do with their arms, when they're in the middle of the jump is so natural, like to how people, like trying to find their balance when they're in the air like that. I think that's like really, really makes that feel like realistic. But yeah, really good job overall.
Thank you.
Speaking of the flailing of the arms, that's actually a really neat thing. I'm going to go back to that during class, because today is about this kind of stuff. Alright, so let's move on to the next thing. So those two are done. Let's take a look at Mesh's exercise. Mesh did the falling tree. Okay, that's a beautiful tree. Okay. Okay, I see what's happening here. I want to pause this just as it starts, let the thing go away. Okay. Okay, I want to take a quick look at this. I think the first thing is I can see clearly that you animated the leaves, like on the probably on a separate layer from the trunk, right?
Yes.
You over animated them.
Yeah, it was
Feels like
kind
you
of.
didn't need to do so much.
I was so like yeah. I kind of so in the beginning I wanted to make it like the wind knocked the tree over. So I was trying to make it look like the leaves were. And then the first time I tried doing it, like I made that stop, but then I don't know. I just I then for some reason I thought like, oh, maybe the wind should just be going the whole time. And, but like it's maybe not. Maybe it wasn't the best idea. Let's do yeah.
You actually did you tried to do something really interesting here. And I like that. We're gonna talk about that. Here it's more or less here. Oh. When does it fall? Yeah, okay. That's what I wanted to see. I think this is the frame where the thing holds, and then oh, and there was one, yeah, but that was already going out. So there's one thing here that I think is really interesting, and this goes back to slow ins and slow outs. Remember when we talked about when to use slow ins and when to use slow outs?
Yes. Sure.
So naturally, this part here, so you do this movement, right? Where it goes from here to here, and then it hangs, right?
Yeah.
I think that what you wanted to do was to feel like the tree, say, so over in this part, it's just very, very slowly tipping over. And then when it gets to here, it's like barely holding on by the roots, right? The roots are like in maximum tension, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. This actually has a lot of potential. Except that this here has to slow out exactly as you did, and then it has to go in free fall all the way to the max tension point. It does not slow in here. This is the same as you throwing a ball at a wall, you know? The ball's not going to slow before it reaches the wall. It's going to smack on the wall and come back. In this case, you would want the tree to come here and then maybe do a little back and forth. Very, very small. As it becomes as stretched as it can, and then like unstretches a little bit and then stretches again, right? As a bounce.
Yeah.
But you would not want to slow in here. That's something that's feeling a little bit awkward about it. that would also like anticipate the fact that the roots would then break and have it fall. If any of this is going against your intention originally, do speak out, okay? Because the thing is, right now you have a tree that's, yeah, it's like, it kind of like, it feels like it's, and then it's like, oh, maybe I won't fall actually, and then it's like, oh wait, I actually have to fall, you know?
Yeah. No, that's totally fair. That is what it looked like. Tending was like, it's like you could imagine like as it's falling, like like maybe after it falls a little bit, a few of the roots kind of come up, and then it falls a little bit more, and then it stops, and then some more roots come up, and then finally at the end, like the big root that's holding it falls. So like it was supposed to kind of like I did intentionally sort of pause a few places, but it doesn't really look right. I guess like
If you want to hold on, if you want to pause on those multiple places, then you have to treat them as keyframes, you know? And that means slowing into them, slowing out of them, that whole thing, you know? And maybe even doing those little bounces as you go. You have to treat them as keyframes if you're going to be doing those little pauses.
okay, yeah, that makes.
Like here, the leaves are really good. Other than that, I mean, I would have liked it more if you didn't do the wind. Because it's making the motion of the leaves really muddy. As in, like, it's hard to really see what they're doing, you know? Like sometimes they're moving left, and then they're moving right, and then they're moving left, and then they're actually trailing the movement of the thing, of the trunk, and it's a little difficult to like read what was intentional, and like, or rather, what is part of the falling motion, what is part of the wind motion. There's a lot of things that are happening. I think it's like when you actually just do that, I think it works. I think it definitely works. Like you gotta stretch here. They go and then they splash. They splat a little. They're definitely acting as stylized leaves, and I think that works just fine. That definitely works just fine. Yeah, I think that is. I'm not sure if I have anything else to say though. I think this is looking good. Yeah, be careful with over animating certain parts while not animating others, you know? That is one thing that I did notice as well when I was doing my own thing. Be careful with that, because then you have like some things that are moving too much and then some things that are moving too little. Like if you had erased these little bits that like go into the leaves and whatever, it might have looked a bit different, because then you wouldn't have things that are like overlapping in motion and whatnot. But even then, like, be careful with over animating something. Make sure that if you're animating something, that there is a clear intentionality in the movement, you know? Like, in a way, the leaves feel like they're just like... It feels like you just drew the same shape over and over again, like over top of itself. And that's sort of masquerading as wind, you know? Like, it doesn't feel like there are gusts of wind, you know?
Gotcha,
like, okay, when the tree begins to fall over, like this frame where the tree begins to fall over, you could have these be like this, you know?
Yeah.
Like, have these be really stretched to really show that this is a really strong gust of wind. Instead of having them be, and maybe even more exaggerated than what I did here. It's like, you can definitely use the wind for this. I mean, shit's been happening all over Portugal as well, like floods and storms and whatever. The wind does this kind of stuff. Trees are falling. So this definitely can happen. Just make sure that if you're doing this kind of thing, like there is intentionality in like these little animation bits that you're just throwing over here, you know? And that you're not holding one frame or animating some at the expense of like making the rest look a little awkward, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, the person was here left. I'm sorry, I wanna get this here again. Is there anything else that anyone else wants to say about Mesh's exercise?
When I saw it, I thought it's a great character. I mean, it looks like
Mhm.
almost like a histrionic tree. Like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna faint. You know, it would have been a great character.
Yeah, I was going to say similar. So to go back to like the technical portions in terms of like some consideration, right where it stops here, you drew the leaves as like still the same like spherical shape, but they're like pointing upward, whereas you should probably draw them more, I don't know, I'll say teardrop shape, but have them point downward the same way that you get this great squash and stretch right there where the tree starts its final descent. You get that squash and stretch on the leaves, and it has that drag to it. It would probably have some pull because of gravity at its like stopping point. And uh, another thing that could help, especially because I missed it the first time that I watched it, if you have some more breakage in the roots, like really show like a whip of a couple of the roots kind of popping up and like flaying at the ground, and that can draw the eye more toward the roots that the person kind of recognizes and sees like, oh, okay, the roots are what's holding this together. So that could help, but overall, you did a really great job. I actually really like the fact that you drew the leaves on like every single frame like that. It didn't fully read as wind at first to me, but like it gives it life, and just like Nance said, like the way that the branches, the arms of the tree as it starts to go down, it looks like it's like reaching back. So all the tree really needs is just a mouth and some eyes on it going, no, 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 oh, wow.
Interesting. Yeah, that's yeah, and that thank you for the feedback and yeah, that's the roots popping up. I think that could have been a good opportunity. And
actually, what were you saying again about the leaves? Like, what was the first thing you said? I'm sorry, I just kind of missed.
Right in where it stops in the middle here,
oh,
the leaves I think would have some more drag because of gravity.
oh,
They
I see.
would point down toward the ground.
Like they would sag a little bit. Okay, that makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. But yeah, thank you all, and yeah, thank you, Beatrice, for breaking that down for me as well. Oh, Beatrice is muted.
But while Beatrice unmutes, your tree's definitely got life and character, and I love that. So
Yeah, me
Thank,
too.
thank you.
All right. All right. Very good. Very good. Last little clip is a thing that was. Oh wait. This is not 10 seconds.
It's the same clip at 4 stages.
Oh, at 4 stages. Okay. Yeah, this is insane, really. All right.
Oh, also, I put a screenshot. So I think I said last time I wanted to bring a clip that had a timing chart that I didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So
This was it, right?
it's yeah. It's when the monster gets. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Okay. This is the timing chart, correct? That you didn't
Yeah, that was
understand.
the one where I was. I wasn't sure exactly what was the
50.
being timed out in that because it was
So this is frame 53. Okay. I see what's happening here. So this is frame 53. Let's go to frame 68. 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 67, 68. This is frame 68. So the movement is extremely subtle, right? This movement is extremely subtle from one to the other. What's happening here, I believe, is that the animator is saying that from here to here and here to here, the same amount of spacing is going to happen, and that this is just going to be breaking down further and further. You know? This would be the timing chart that I would, or that we've been doing in class. That would be 53 and 68. And we would do, here would be 55. And then here would be 61. Here would be 58. And here would be 64. I believe that's what it would look like if it were to be done like here in class the way we've been doing it, you know? So basically, I think this is what it's saying. It's saying that there's but the movement is very, very, very subtle. So even though it's that, it's really hard to say what it is. But I think it's definitely that. So 58. And then it moves and switches to the next one. But yes, this is an example of something that is very complex in terms of animation. Absolutely. So yeah. And since we're on the topic and we mentioned this before, let's just take a quick stop and like check keyframes here.
Hello?
Hello?
My name is Ramsey.
Yes?
Hello.
We're currently in
Hi,
class.
Ramsey.
If you would be so kind as to mute yourself for a little bit, that would be very nice. Thank you. So yes, I'll get you up to speed in just a second. So yeah, so I just wanted to take a quick stop and then check the keyframes. Cause you do know you notice them more in the you notice them more in the animatic, I think. Cause all of these are important frames. Like that one here where she was holding, she's doing the turn is important. It's important because it's an anticipation to this other frame here. That's also very important. And I mean, this is a very clear keyframe. This one here where the monster takes the skate. And then like we can look forward and let's look at the tie down. Yeah, tie down is going to be good to look at. 1 to 5, 3 in the middle. This is just saying that the breakdowns are pretty standard. 5 to 9, 7 in the middle, standard breakdowns. This is 7, this is 9, 11, 13, and all of these that are lined like this, They may not be keyframes, but they're all extremes, which are extremely important frames. And yeah, like this is a very important pose. This and the one that's gonna come soon after it. I think I missed the timing chart. Like this is a keyframe. And as you can see, it went from 29 to 32, where most others are going evenly. This one went for 3 frames. That's what I'm saying with holding. Like you can hold for like a fraction of a second. But it can go for just that little bit longer that's going to give it the motion. Here you have slow out. Oh shit, I went too fast. 38, 40. Here you have this is just going, just the monster being hit. Here it is, like absolute keyframe right here. This just holds for so long. Such an important keyframe. and yeah. Like you have the most important ones are very clear. Then you have some which are less important and are about anticipating and are about overshooting and are about like all those little things that end up mattering a lot as well, but aren't like obvious keyframes. Here the keyframes are even like slow motion kind of shots, like when the monster's hit, when she's jumping on top of the skates and all that. But again, this is an extremely high level animation. This is very, very difficult to do. There's a lot of like expressiveness here, smear frames. It's very, very good. Very, very good. Was there any particular light in which you wanted me to look at this, Mesh?
Well, it was, yeah. I mean, I guess just the overall, like, yeah, just like the how strong the poses were and stuff, but also just trying to figure out like what it meant. The 3 or 4 different lines going across it, you know, or like, I mean, I guess I don't know. Maybe that's like, I mean, I guess it's like different parts of the frame are moving and different things, different objects within the frame.
Oh wait, were you talking about different lines and things? You cut out for a second. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, yeah, it was just like I was just curious. Well, yeah, I mean, overall, this clip has a lot of stuff going on. Usage of the timing chart, where it was like super complex. Or I guess I was wondering this during the part where she's like hanging like in the air, like that part as well during the tie down section. There was like just like a lot of lines to make sure, but yeah, but yeah, I think I think the way you break it down, understanding a lot of what was going on.
Okay. But yeah, this is really high level, really solid stuff.
Could someone get me up to speed?
Yes, so we're going to get into the theoretical part anyway, so I'll just give you a quick introduction. To the people who joined, who I believe is only Ramsey, welcome. This is Animation Lab. This is a group that meets every Tuesday, more or less at this time. And currently we're doing a light course on the introducing animation and how to animate. And we're going through the fundamental principles of animations. They were outlined more or less by Disney animators back in the 1930s.
I love that animation.
This is a company.
I'm
from-
animated. I'm an animator myself.
This is accompanied by practical exercises, and as well as like these breakdowns of either the exercises that people do or clips from other animators or shows that you might have found that you found interesting. We're just finished with the first part of the group, which was precisely going over what everyone has done and what everyone wanted to show this week. And now we're gonna get into the next part, which is the theoretical part, the principle that we're gonna be looking at today, which is the secondary action. I forgot to put an image over here.
Did you hear that I'm an animator and I'm working on my second animated short?
Yes, thank you. That's really cool.
So this will definitely be helpful with my short that I'm working on.
Very well. May we get to it then?
Very well, continue. I'll turn off my speaker.
All good. So, today we're going to be talking about secondary action. Secondary action are gestures, and this is important to mention because it's not difficult to get secondary action confused with overlapping action, because the two are very similar. Secondary action are gestures that a character does, or object, that support and reinforce the primary action. So the best way to understand this is imagine that you're describing a clip to someone, okay? And this is where I want to bring back jumping the gap here. So this is pretty simply an animation of someone running and jumping over a gap. But as Mesh mentioned, it also has the little bonus of there's the person when they're jumping is flailing their arms around. So what's happening there is that the main motion is the jumping over the gap. The secondary motion here is the flailing of the arms. It's a very intentional movement by the character, or in this case maybe instinctual, but it's very in character to them, which means that if this person were subjected to many situations like this is how they would act. This is characterization in motion. So yes, it's a gesture that's taken by the character that reinforces the primary action, doesn't take it over. So when you're looking at the flailing of the arms, you're not thinking, oh, that's a character flailing the arms. You're still thinking, that's a character jumping over a gap. The flailing of the arms is flavor. It's characterization. And it adds to the narrative and personality contexts. Secondary action of a character should be unique to the character, as in it should be something that only they would do or something that they would do. It would never be something that they wouldn't do. And again, shouldn't detract from the main action, but should help convey something else about it, about the character. This is the key of secondary action. And the difference from overlapping action is that overlapping action always exists as a consequence of the primary action. So when we look at when we look at this and we look at the tail and we look at the ears and we look at like the little dangly bits, all of those are overlapping action. They are always a result of the primary action. They are a thing that happens because the primary action is happening. The ears as well. none of it is necessarily an intended movement by the character. On the other hand, when the character puts their hands forward, or when a Vintage's character flails their arms around, that is characterization. That is what the character would do in that particular situation. It's not dependent on the main action, but it reinforces and recontextualizes it. Someone who would do the jump that... wait, there it is. Someone that would do this jump and wouldn't flail their arms around is a different person from a person that would do this jump and flail their arms around. This is the core of secondary action. It's these subtle things that characterize, that provide character and give expression more, or reinforce more the primary action, but give context of the character or object in motion. So they're not just doing one thing. I have posted 3 example videos in the videos channel that I suggest you take a look at, because I've been kind of not very available, and I wasn't able to find proper examples, which is why I just made use of yours, Vintage, because that was a really good one. And I wasn't really able to gather examples, so I just gathered some on the internet. But give or take, you'll find these secondary actions all over the place.
What is secondary action? What was the actions you brought up before?
May, can you repeat, please?
What is secondary action? I heard a little bit of it, but what's the actions you brought up before?
The examples that I brought up were, so you had this character here, and this character is jumping over a gap. They're running, and then they're jumping over a gap. But while they're jumping over the gap, they have this flailing of the arms motion, which helps to characterize them and tell the audience who this character is without interrupting on the main action, and in fact reinforcing the main action. In this case,
what if you have not defined your characters yet? What if you don't know how they should move? Then how do you do secondary action? Do you come up with your own secondary action? What if you haven't fully defined your characters and the way they move? What do you do?
By definition, you won't be able to do it accurately. As in, you can do characterizational bits without knowing the character, but the problem with that is that eventually you're going to end up contradicting yourself, and that's going to be an issue. So it's important that you develop your character before you start animating. Also, I didn't mention this before, but secondary action is something that is baked into the keyframes and the way that you're going to be animating. Usually, it can be okay, depending on what kind of secondary action it is, it can be okay to use separate layers to mark out the animations of the secondary action, but you can also just bake it into the actual keyframes as you're doing them.
Well, the reason I'm asking is that most of the characters I'm using in this short are from the first short, and a lot of them didn't really have much of a personality outside of either being a funny voice, or that they did have a few character traits. Like, I have a character named Peter Pig, whose only character traits is that he's hungry and that he likes to eat a lot. And then there's some of them had character traits, but for the most part they were voice imitation.
Mm-hmm. You
of
can.
actors that I've heard, like
Okay.
Paul Lynn and Peter Lorre.
Okay.
In fact, my main character barely has much of a personality at all.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And I'm
you.
figuring out which character would work a little bit more, just from the storyboard phase and the scripting phase.
That would usually come down to the concept art, even, where you would draw their characteristic poses and you would get the vibe of the character out. But even from what you've described to me, where you have a character who likes to eat a lot, then you can do secondary action on that.
What about a character who only forgets stuff? Like I have a character named Ellie the Elephant who always forgets everything. He has a horrible memory. Then I have a mole who's blind, and when he takes his glasses off, he can see a little bit. Not too much.
I think this is a matter of like being creative with what you do. You can work with a character who's very forgetful. Just try to imagine what kind of tics would reinforce that forgetfulness in the actions that they're taking. They could frequently stop, as in like trying to remember what they're doing. They could interrupt. Well, they shouldn't be interrupting actions. That should be part of the narrative if that's what's happening. But they can like have these brief moments of like trying to remember, or let me think.
Or he slaps his hand on the table like this. Like you just.
I wouldn't say the slapping of the hand on the table would exactly be the kind of gesture for that, but that's an option as well if you think that would fit the character.
And
yeah.
I'm also working with a villain this time around, whose main characteristic is that he's a bully. He's a creep. He's a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Who gets away with a lot of stuff, but even though he gets a slight something of a comeuppance, he doesn't really get much of one.
All right. Situations for that. This is you can like in the scenes or in the shots where you're having them be an ass, you can add little tics of him being disgusting.
Like him licking his chops, like him licking his.
For example, there are like little things that you can do that could reinforce and characterize the character further in that direction.
How would the tics work when a character barely has no personality? Like my main character, Alexander, had no personality. In fact, I didn't even know what kind of a voice to give him during the first short.
Well, you should probably figure it out.
Or should I have the voice actor come up with the characteristics?
No.
Then I do the animation over that.
Yeah, Jotel just said something that's useful to think. That's useful to think about. Maybe try to think, how would this make my character feel? Then how would they react? So if I was forgetful, I might respond by being confused. I might get sad. I might get angry, frustrated. The action they respond with will inform their personality. What attitude would they respond with to their problems and wants? What do they want? Why do they want it? This is what you're saying is very correct, but you're getting main action mixed up with secondary action here, where
Action.
give me a second, Ramsey. Where the secondary action isn't the response, it's the extra like small motions of the body and expressions that they do, micro expressions and small little things that they do in addition to the response. That's what secondary action is.
Oh, it's like
not
if a
it's
character
not-
makes an exaggerated face.
It can be that.
Or-
It's if a character who's very hungry or a character who likes to eat a lot might lick their lips before they bite on a burger, for example. That's extra characterizing on the eating of the burger. The shot here is eating the burger. So you can give extra characteristics by having them, for example,
It means like
lick
little
their lips
details.
or close their eyes in pleasure as they're biting the burger because it tastes so good. Like there's like those little things that you add to, so it's not really an extension, as in like it's not extending the response, it's broadening it. It's simultaneous to the response, it's just adding context to it. So in the case of the flailing arms, it's not extending anything. Yes, exactly. Like you're not like the how would make this character feel and how would they react. That's what you do on the screenplay. That's what would be the main actions, right?
Yeah, but what's the difference between the secondary action and the other action you were talking about?
Overlapping action.
What?
Overlapping action. That was the other one that I mentioned.
What's overlapping action?
It's something that we looked over last week, which
I wasn't here.
Yes, I'll explain it here. Overlapping action are parts of an object, body, or character that follow the movement of the main action but aren't directly involved in it. You can think of this as like hair. Hair always follows the head, but it doesn't exist glued to the head. In the case of this character, you have the fluffy ears, you have the tail, you have these little like droopy hanging things, and you have like this kind of cape-like thing as well. All these things are things that are attached to the body of the character, so they will move in accordance to the body of the character, but they will move independently. So when the character comes back to wind up the jump, the tail moves just to compensate. These things are pulled up. These are things that they add liveliness to the action, but they don't add character to it. These are things that are just physics happening, you know?
So it's physics.
It is basically physics. It is the application of physics to like things that aren't the main body. Yes.
But I work with cartoony physics where like the arm stretches out or a part of the body stretches out.
Yeah, that's okay. That doesn't change.
So does that still, what you're talking about still applies to what I'm doing?
The best way that I'd be able to is if you were able to provide examples of the things that you do, and you would bring that up next class on...
I have my first animated short. Is there a way for me to send it to you?
Wait, I'm going to... Do you see the voice chat where we all are, correct?
Let me go back to it.
In Discord. The voice chat where we all are, correct?
Let me go back to it. I don't see it because... Wait a minute. Let me go back to it. Yeah, I see it now.
Okay, you see us all here, correct?
Yeah.
Above it, you should have a list of things called assignments, turnarounds, lab chat, 10-second clips, and videos, correct?
I see like a messaging board. Could I send it to a link to you through that?
What I would like you to do is to find the channel that's called 10-second clips and create a post in there. It's very easy. I'm going to screen share my Discord. So this is the voice chat where we are, okay? Right here.
Yeah.
Then you would scroll up and you'd see assignments, turnarounds, lab chat, 10-second clips, and videos. I would like you to go to 10-second clips, okay?
All right. 10. Let me go to the search engine. 10 second
10-sec clips.
clips. Do I put .com or do I just put in clips?
It's not a
And if I
search
may-
engine. It's on Discord.
Oh, let me go back to Discord then. I thought for a moment it was.
Do you see my stream? Take a look at my stream, okay?
Yeah, I think I see it.
You recognize the layout of Discord, even if you're using it in browser, correct?
Yes, I'm using it on my phone.
Okay, that makes it a bit more difficult. Regardless, you see the voice chat where we are. I'm gonna just have my phone up here and check how it looks on phone.
Okay, wouldn't it be easier just to send it to you through the messaging board?
If I may,
Yes, yes,
Ramsey.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe. So after the session, a moderator can help you, one of the moderators.
What's a moderator?
It's someone that's in charge of the channel. So that way, after class, someone will help you.
Yes.
And they can help you afterwards. So that way we can finish the lesson, and then next week, Beatrice can look at your animation. So can you wait after class to upload it for someone to help you?
How do I get someone to help me?
Perfect. If you just stay on the call, there'll be an announcement that class is over with, and someone will be able to help you there if you stay in the voice channel.
The class, go ahead. I'm going to turn off my speaker now.
Apologies, and thank you, Low Poly Princess. So, in addition to everything that we've been talking, are there any other questions or anything that hasn't been cleared out about secondary action? As I was saying, in the videos channel, before we get there are 3 videos that I would highly recommend you take a look at, either in class or out of class. They're fairly short, but they all provide examples of what secondary action might be and how you can use it. So, questions? If not, then we just move on to the exercises. The exercises for this week, they are going to be extremely subtle in the actions, because the importance here is that you get to convey the action, but through that character's lens. So the ones here are a character thinking and taking a deep breath, blinking, and one that's a little bit more, it's expressive because of different characters will play it in different ways. And that's why it's here. It is also significantly more difficult. So yes, none of these should involve significantly difficult motions, but they should involve thinking deeply about what your character wants and what your character is like, and how that would express itself in their own motion. Now, we still have roughly 25 minutes of class, It isn't a lot, but if you would like to get started with the exercises, I'm going to post them to the assignments channel just to have them there for anyone interested. And I'd get started as well. Nacho, would it be okay if you tried to help Ramsey while we're doing this? Nacho?
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alright, if you have to move to a different channel or something, that's okay. So
You
I'm
want us
going
to use the characters in the turnarounds?
Yes, you should use the characters in the turnarounds.
Okay.
If you know the characters that you're going to animate, so I believe you picked Chihiro, which means that you probably know Chihiro, or how she acts and what she's like, then you obviously know more things than someone who's seeing them for the first time, which is going to help you in like getting across those subtle expressions and what that character is like. But yes, you should definitely use the characters in the turnarounds.
Thanks.
Also, I'll mention this here as a reinforcement to what I said to Vintage in the exercises last week. The exercises used to be listed here as having to be done on 24 frames per second on twos on a 16:9 screen and exported as MP4. I have taken out the requirement that they be animated on twos. That's because you can do it still. It is still a good framework to work from, but if you want to play around with spacing and timing, and you want to, for example, try to use timing as a way to slow in and slow out, that's an option. And you can find a lot of like subtle ways to use spacing and timing that can be helpful in your own animations and even build style around it. So the on-twos requirement has been taken out. You animate at what feels more comfortable, at the spacing and timing that feels more comfortable to you. Sometimes you may need to do on twos, sometimes you can do on threes, on fours, maybe even a little bit more if you're really being like subtle motions. The only thing that I will recommend against for now is to animate on ones, because that's just a lot of drawings. That just takes a lot of work. That's not really worth it for these exercises. So yes, I'm going to post them now and get started with my own little exercise. For anyone who'd want to follow. If you have any questions while doing them, feel free to ask them and I'll answer. Also, welcome Amanda.
Hey, thanks. Just popping in to listen in for a little bit.
Oh my lord.
What are we talking about now? Curious.
Alright. The exercises are now posted to the assignments channel, and I'm going to get started with mine as well. Also, if you're just popping in, Amanda, this is the part where we just spend 20. Usually, it's more like an hour, but when the first part gets a bit longer, it becomes like half an hour. This is the part where I just spend some time drawing. If you want to join in, the exercises are listed. The purpose of them today is to focus on secondary action. And yeah.
And what you've outlined for the assignment, that's the primary action, right? The thinking,
Yes,
breathing, blinking, painting. Okay.
Exactly. You have, whatever you do, the character, you need to look at the action and you need to look at the finished exercise, and the person who watches it needs to read. That's a character thinking. And whatever else you do with that, it needs to be dressing that adds to the character, that conveys character about them.
Alrighty.
So that's what. So for Nance, as I said, you if you want, you can start working on adding a character to the walk cycle. And if you want, you can also do these exercises.
Okay.
Also, for anyone interested, this is important to know. There is, I just need to find it real quick. You can have a safety grid that will help you with animation. Usually in professional animation software, you want to work within a frame within the main image. That's because you're frequently going to be animating outside of that, because sometimes movements need to go outside of it. This is probably not going to be the case here, because again, these movements should be pretty self-contained. But you can definitely use these guides as a help, as a way to not have what happens to vintage happen to you. To have more or less a notion of space and what's going to happen there.
And on that, is there any way to change the guides in animation paper? Because these lines are so light.
No.
I know, right?
Not that I know. Not that I know, no. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Alright. Okay.
Question.
Yes?
So, did you want me to use a character sheet for the walk, and then also a character sheet for the assignment for next week? Is that, I just want to clarify that.
Yes, ideally, yes. How long should
Okay.
the animation be?
Okay.
Yes, yes. You should be
Okay.
using for both. For both.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
How long should the animation be? So yeah, probably under 10 seconds. Like, don't do too much. This is an exercise. Also, feel free to unmute and ask questions. This is the part where you're free to talk if you want to. But yeah, just try to keep it somewhat simple, and don't overdo it. Again, that's because these are exercises. You want to make sure that you get the point across without overworking yourself. Also, I currently have one of the turnarounds open, so if you want to say something to me, it's definitely better if you say it through voice chat, because I'm more likely to hear it that way. Okay. Welcome, Givernish, to the class. we've already gone through most of the actual class today. Currently, we're just working on the exercises. If you would like to join, feel free. They are listed in the assignments channel. You can follow along with that pretty well.
I'm gonna head out. Thank you, and have a good week.
You too. Have a good week.
Bye.
Yeah, so I'll let her leave. She left? No. In that case, yeah, I was just going to say we're coming to the end, and if there's anything which you want to ask, or if you want me to have a look at what you're working on so far, which I assume isn't much because we basically just started, but if you want me to look at what you've got so far, we can definitely do that. And yeah, in a short bit, we're going to cut the class short, and we're gonna move, and we're gonna close, and we're gonna say goodbye.
Sounds good.
So just tell me if there's anything which you want me to look at, and I will.
Yeah, I don't think I have quite enough to look at yet.
That's completely
Yeah,
understandable.
Do you have any? I guess. Do you have any tips for like?
For?
Sorry, do you have any tips for? Like when a character's head is turning, I know we went over head turns in the previous class, but like, I guess just like filling in because I guess if you have a character model sheet with a few different poses or a few different angles of the head. Is there anything in particular you do, like if you're like if you're just sort of I don't know, I guess just sort of creating the head pose are in between. Yeah. I know we sort of already talked about this, but I guess I hadn't really done it yet myself, except partially in one of the previous assignments, and yeah, I guess like
I am quite frankly just slightly confused by what you're saying, in part because I'm struggling to hear.
Oh, okay.
It's the same old problem.
That's okay. I mean, yeah, I don't know if you can hear me now, but it was basically just like if there's anything in particular that you do when you're taking like a character's model sheet and like trying to create those poses that are in between, like the angles of the head, for example, that are defined in the model sheet, like they're like yeah, but I know that's a fairly vague question, I guess. Like I don't have maybe I can probably formulate it better next week. What was it?
You use the model sheets to reference what you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't a great question, but yeah, it was just something I was running into. Sort of like, how do I get from like the quarter turn facing backward to like the quarter turn facing forward?
Well, that comes to knowing what model you're working with, and
yeah,
like you obviously like most of the information that is encoded in the character turnaround is there. It's not strictly there to be copied, or rather, the information that's encoded in the character turnaround it's there primarily for consistency, meaning that you're going to reference the turnaround to make sure that at every point the character that you're drawing looks like the right character. So in a way, what you do in those in-betweens that you're working with is you have to kind of estimate what it is that you're doing, and you have to feel if it feels like it's in model. You probably will have a reference of a pose that you can use that'll get you the right angle, but if you don't, you have to feel it out a little bit.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, it's more like just practicing and sort of figuring it out. Yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you.
And one more time, Beatrice, could you just explain for Bebop? Just invite him to the server. And he just joined. What this animation lab is about.
All right, so this animation lab. So welcome, Bebop, to the animation lab. And so, to give a brief explanation of what we're doing here, we're currently going through the principles of animation as they were outlined by animators back in the 1930s or whatever. It's been a long time, yet those principles remain very much applicable to this day and age. They haven't lost any of their value, really. So we're doing that through both the theoretical parts, where we go through what those principles are, how to use them, and all those like more little nitty-gritty things. Examples, which today's class was kind of lacking, but usually they're more focused on how industry professionals have been able to use those principles in order to achieve the results that they ended up with. And also through exercises in which we go through specific assignments that focus primarily on bringing out those specific principles which we're trying to look at. That is what we do over here. The way the classes are structured is that at the very start of every class, we go over the exercises of the week before, as well as any clips or things otherwise that people bring up that they want to share. And then we follow on to the theoretical parts, and then we follow on to the exercises. We're currently doing the exercises. So I hope that's, even though it's a little rushed, I hope that's a brief explanation of what we do here, and I hope that suffices.
My question is not to be polarizing. It's just a sincere question. Are there more men in animation than women? Or is it flipped, or is it equal?
It's a good question, actually. I am not sure I am really able to answer that properly. I know where I worked at, it was a pretty even split. But I also know that that in parts is because of an effort by the studio itself. Where I studied at, it was definitely majority women. Arts course. That is kind of the way it tends to go from what I hear. As in like the actual industry, or like when I say the actual industry, I mean like the industry overseas, Disney, the big names. I'm not really sure I can answer that question properly.
Thanks. Just wondering.
But I know that there are definitely some excellent women animators in the professional world. I believe that. Have you watched Cyberpunk Edge Runners?
Is that the Netflix version?
Yes, the anime.
Okay, I haven't seen it, but I've seen the promos.
The ending to the anime was animated, storyboarded and animated pretty much entirely by one person, who is a brilliant woman animator, who is an animator. As part of like as like the crew itself, I don't know. You have to go name by name to really like know. I don't know what Studio Trigger does that specifically. I could ask around. I know people would probably know the answer.
Cool. Thanks.
If I mean, I guess I can kind of guess the reason for the question, but I'd still like to ask a little bit why. I'm curious if that's okay.
Yeah, I am not a very skilled graphic or visual artist, but I was curious because when I think of like mangaka or the artists that I know of, it is majorly men artists. And when I think about like some clips I've watched, like behind the studio, and they show the animators, it's usually a male force. So I was curious.
In a way, I think that is still kind of. I think it's hard to like. I don't want to make comparisons that I don't know the actual answer to, but like, it feels to me like it might be in like America and whatever, like the bigger studios. It feels to me like it might be a similar thing to the cooking industry, where even though it's a very traditionally more feminine kind of thing, the high level positions tend to be taken up by men. I think that would be somewhat expectable, but I'm not really sure. I can't really speak with certainty.
I have a couple of friends who are visual artists, and I was thinking about if there was anyone that would benefit from coming to this that I could invite. And I was thinking, I don't really know that many women that are interested in this aspect of visual art. So that was kind of where that came from too.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the character you're sketching with the blue line art thing?
I am sketching Nanachi.
Oh.
A character from Made in Abyss whose turnaround is in the turnarounds section.
I like anime. I know a lot of random things about anime. I make little anime for my school.
Alright. Regardless, I'm going to cut the class here. I'm gonna stay in the voice call if anyone wants to hang out. But officially, let's cut this here. It's been 2 hours and 12 minutes already. So I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed the class. I hope you learned something new. And I hope you practice and you do the exercises if you can. Because they're definitely challenging and they're definitely fun. Feel free to check out Script Camp, Film Camp, the other camps. There's a lot of camps. I mentioned them at the start of the class, where multiple different kinds of skills are explored and taught and lectured and whatever. Script Camp is the biggest one so far, where you're taught how to write a screenplay, basically. So yeah, other than that, thank you for coming to ToonCamp, thank you for coming to the Animation Lab, and I'll see you next Tuesday, more or less at the same time, for the next installment, where we'll be talking about staging, and we're going to be getting into multiple shot exercises. Or at least mandatory multiple shot exercises. So yeah, have a good one, and I will see you later.